Greetings and welcome. I am Middle Class Man, and as usual, I'd like to start off the program with a few of my favorite posters. My first poster is one that I don't think anyone can disagree with because, let me make a few adjustments. It says a healthy two-party system equals a healthy America. And I believe in that. Let me repeat that again, just in case. A healthy two-party system equals a healthy America. And I think everyone agrees with that, but you can see why that would be my favorite poster. And my next favorite poster, I guess you could say, is the poster that speaks of what we're going to do is tell it the way we see it, where we are. We're going to tell it the way it looks from where we are. That's for sure. Because Congress is looking somewhere else. We know that already. And lastly, we're gonna take a trip down to what we would call Common Sense Corner. Okay? Common Sense Corner. A lot of posters up there, but they all make sense. We're going to go to Common Sense Corner before it's over with, so that we can discuss Congress's ability, or we should say we're going to expose Congress's ability to show no common sense at all. That's what the show is about today. So just stick with me, and while I make a few adjustments here, and we'll be ready to go in a minute. All right? And here I come. Good to see everybody's here again today. I guess you can see I have my 2014 glasses. And I think you know the purpose of my 2014 glasses. 2014 is our year. Anyway, like I said, I am Middle Class Man. And I would like to thank you all for your valuable participation regarding last week's very important questions. From the responses that I received, it seems that some of you had heard of the programs that are before Congress right now, but weren't aware of the party that supports them. Well, that fact alone lets me know that the importance of Middle Class Man as a source is very important. It's very important whenever you need info or answers to policy questions are needed to make a decision about who to vote for. Because if you don't know who is sponsoring a specific bill that you think will aid you, how will you know who to vote for? And I hope we are all planning to vote this November, because that's the only way the forgotten majority, who are the working poor and the middle class, are going to get any respect. Don't know if you're part of the forgotten majority? Then please refer to Middle Class Man Session 1 so you can be brought up to date on which exclusive club you belong to. Now, let me say that Middle Class Man is not here to tell you how to vote. I cannot say that enough for the sake of new viewers. Probably will repeat it many more times, because party loyalty is a very strong instinct in voters. That's why I make it a point to suggest that when communicating with Middle Class Man or making voting decisions, making voting decisions, you should leave your party at the door so that you can vote for someone who has your interest in mind. Because I'll tell you, in my years of voting, I've never experienced a political party that I agreed with and voted for everything they wanted to do. So remember to vote your interest. Vote your interest. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's move on. I know that during session 1, I spoke at length about the forgotten majority. This week, I'd like to put a face on the many groups that belong to the forgotten majority and discuss one of them today. Now, those groups that belong to the forgotten majority are women, women with infants and children, the elderly, minorities, returning military, disabled, and students. That's a lot. That's the majority of the country. That's why I say we are the forgotten majority. You know, that's just the way it is. Let's be clear. I'm not saying there should be programs for everything these groups need. That's impossible, even for the richest nation on earth. What I am saying is consistent with what I've been saying all along. Don't just get rid of the programs that benefit the forgotten majority and leave us dependent. Come on, guys, break a sweat. Guys and girls, women, men and women, break a sweat. And put some intelligence into your decisions. Do you know the intelligence that exists amongst the members of Congress? Have you ever taken notice of the backgrounds of many of our congressional members? We have professions of all kinds: doctors, lawyers, businessmen, teachers, you name it. The education level in Congress is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. With the experience and education they have as a group, America should never be in any type of self-imposed financial trouble like we've been seeing in the past few years. Yes, self-imposed. One party's trying to make the other party look bad so they can get in. You know, self-imposed financial problem. And who suffers? We do. Now, self-imposed financial problems, that's one thing. A catastrophe is something else. Can't really plan for a catastrophe. But even though a catastrophe is something you can't plan for, I still expect Congress to respond with a high level of accuracy. But let me get back on subject. As I promised earlier, I said I was going to put a face on the forgotten majority, and I've done that. Now it's time to discuss one member of that group. Let's start with women. Okay? Is it me, or have women been struggling with being accepted anywhere outside of the home forever? I mean, they just, as soon as they step out of the house, they get no respect. I can hear it now. What's he talking about? Women aren't struggling. We let them be teachers, nurses, etc., which are highly respected and needed professions. That might be true to some extent if the women you're talking about aren't part of the forgotten majority. Remember, there are many reasons someone becomes part of the forgotten majority, such as losing a job, divorce, illness, and family problems. And guess what? I know what you're saying. These are reasons for anyone to become part of the forgotten majority. And that's true. But it's also true that women aren't far from the women's liberation movement. And before that, they had to fight hard. I mean, really hard. Look up suffrage and all, just They had to fight really hard to get a chance to vote and be eligible to run for elected office, which they finally won in 1920. Why? 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 Why is this going on? Why are women? I don't understand it. It's scary to think that same culture of depriving a certain segment of the population the right to vote because of outdated, factually untrue, overused reasoning is still alive and well in Congress. What culture of deprivation am I talking about? Glad you asked. I'm talking about pay equity. Because for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 77 cents an hour. Again, I ask, why? Why is equal pay for equal work a problem? Let's see. Let's see what 77 cents looks like up against a dollar as a week's pay. If a man worked 8 hours a day for a week, he would earn $40. As opposed to if a woman worked the same amount of hours, she would earn $30.80. Boy, oh boy, boy. There must be something unforeseen that would make someone want to accept less pay for the same amount of work. And why are we doing this to women? Remember I told you we were going to the old common sense corner? This deserves a trip to common sense corner. Let me see now. Where do I get started here? Let's see. Women are the primary homemakers. And if you want to believe what Congress is saying right now, remember, we're in common sense corner, so we're making comparisons. Okay, let me start again. Women are the primary homemakers, and if you want to believe what Congress is saying right now, we are talking about unmarried mothers who have children by men who have never worked, have no role models to instill a work ethic in them. Sadly, that is what our Congress believes. Well, if that was really true, if women are really as needy as they are because the men don't have work ethics and don't want to work, if that was really true and women were really that needy, why would women be deprived by Congress of the opportunity to provide as well as possible for their families? I don't know anyone who would voluntarily accept such a one-sided, unfair position. You know, check this out. Our elected officials like to tell stories about people they have observed in supermarkets and all places, you know, buying all kinds of outrageous items with, you know, the little government access cards that they give us to, you know, they like to tell stories to support their argument for why they want to cut a program or why they want to justify a no vote when it comes to helping what I've heard them refer to as welfare queens. Welfare queens, wow. First of all, you can never convince me that these people who claim to have stood in a supermarket line were ever in a market at all. And when you think of the phrase welfare queen, which our elected officials love to use from time to time, I wonder how they can be so comfortable using the phrase so demeaning and hateful to describe people who are in need and at the lowest point in life. That basically amounts to kicking a person when they're down. But we're not stupid. We can see the purpose of using the phrase welfare queens. But let me tell you firsthand, you ain't no queen or king. You can't be. when you're on welfare. Now let's figure out what are these congressmen, what are they talking about? In most cases, what they are talking about are people who are using every resource available to make ends meet. Hey, Congress, you don't make much money selling Lucy's. You know what they are. But just in case you don't, it's when people buy cigarettes when they can't afford a pack. Or maybe you saw them buying a case of beer or a few cases of beer because they can sell a bottle of beer for less than the corner bar can and still make a profit. Or maybe you saw them in the liquor store buying liquor. Oh, you go in the liquor store too? Oh, I didn't think you guys drank liquor. Well, anyway, maybe you saw them in the liquor store buying liquor so they can sell shots to their neighbors who are in the same position as the welfare queens that Congress speaks of. Does that sound like such a great life? Neighbors sitting in your cramped space, drinking at all hours of the night if they don't take what they purchased with them. I don't see anywhere in recent congressional decisions that shows they understand the forgotten majority's reality. Because if Congress did understand the forgotten majority's realities, their favorite words would be, let's help and improve aid programs. Not let's cut these programs because they are being misused. There's another overused excuse. These programs are being misused. These programs were created to fill a need. And that kind of reasoning is the opposite of what these elected officials were elected to do, which is to make life better with the power we, the people, have given them through the election process. Make life better, not worse. How did we get here? How did we get here? So much hate that like in past civilizations, we are on our way to destruction from within, from being our own worst enemies. First of all, we don't have to go down the destructive path. All it takes is a commitment by Congress to find ways to improve American lives in areas that need adjusting. Secondly, explain the adjustments to the American people clearly without all the hocus pocus. Americans aren't stupid. They know who is on their side and who isn't on their side. Well, most of the time they do. Most of the time. All right, let me get to my true story. Like I said, these congressmen like to tell stories, so I'm going to get to a story. Let me get to my story about a family I am very familiar with. This story involves a mother and her two sons. The boy's father passed when the oldest was 3. The mother had a high school diploma. She applied and received welfare, but that wasn't enough. That wasn't getting them the basics of the family helped out as much. The grandmother, the grandfather, the aunts, the uncles. Everybody helped out as much as possible, which wasn't very much. Mother went to a state-funded business school while working 2 jobs. The boys were on their own a lot after they became teenagers. They strayed from their strict religious upbringing for the glamour they saw in the illegal activity that surrounded them. Around that same time, the mother finished another state-funded training program. Do you hear what I'm saying? State-funded training programs. These are the programs you guys are trying to cut. State-funded training program. All right? She got a state-funded training program that included referrals upon graduation. The mother got a full-time job as a clerk, which gave her time to get back to parenting. Well, I've often heard this lady say, thank God, many times I've heard her say it, for getting that job when she did, because she would have lost her boys to the criminal world. Common Sense Corner, we're still in Common Sense Corner. Now, I don't know where these congressmen or when they see all the negative activity they speak of. But the story I just told is directly from the mean streets, and it's positive. I hope a story like this will notify our Congress that it's not all negative, and that they need to get out a little more before they make assumptions that all of the forgotten majority are takers. Again, let me remind you, if you belong to the forgotten majority, remember now, if you want to figure out if you belong to the forgotten majority, refer to Middle Class Man Takes on Congress Session 1. Alright? But, like I said, let me remind you that if you belong to the forgotten majority, or if you know someone who belongs to this elite group, we need participation. We all need to get together. We need, because I'm part of the same group. I don't know if you remember me saying that before, but I'm part of the same group. And we need to get together to gain some respect. Participation means communicating with Middle Class Man with questions or concerns about your pocket money, and letting our elected officials know how you feel about how they are treating you. Alright, but the most important thing you want to remember is, if the money in your pocket is right, everything else falls in place. Okay? That pretty much ends my session on women, how women are being treated. Only thing I can say is, where is Susan B. Anthony when you need her? Alright, that ends it for this session. I'll see you next week. Think about what I said. Bye.